Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I would like us to compare Ethiopian National Defense Forces and Tigray People's Liberation Front on the three parameters of combat operations as well as information warfare management. Ladies and gentlemen, the conceptual component of combat operations deals with the relative strength of an army. By all measures, ENDF is a far much stronger army than the TPLF. ENDF is backed by a functioning state government with a secure and assured stream of financial and human resources. ENDF can conscript lawfully if it is short of manpower. The TDF does not enjoy this advantage. TPLF cannot levy taxes on businesses and citizens in Tigray. TPLF can only depend on donations, and their recruitment is limited to volunteers. Fighters who join TDF are not assured of a pension or gratuity, unlike the soldiers who join the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. So you can see already that it is impossible for TPLF, TDF to assure people who join it that they will have any advantage should they even finish the war successfully or die in combat. But those who join ENDF know that if they die in combat, then their families will be taken care of. The other parameter is the physical parameter, which deals with the actual action of combat. And this basically determines the outcome of any engagement in battle. Knowledge of the terrain is critical here. TPLF generals are veterans of the Ethiopian Liberation War that was fought in the 1980s and the 1990s. They know the terrain in Tigray, Afar and Amhara regions well. This was their line of advance from their rebel bases to Addis Ababa. You can imagine these veterans facing new recruits in ENDF who do not have this advantage. The main advantage for TPLF in this parameter is that they are operating in a region they know well physically. However, TPLF also has a disadvantage in the sense that they are operating in an area with hostile populations. The Amhara and Afar people view the TPLF as an occupying force, not as liberators. It is therefore difficult for TPLF to collect reliable and actionable intelligence in a hostile environment. The other parameter, ladies and gentlemen, is the moral component, which deals with the justification of the war and the operations doctrine of the fighting forces. In terms of leadership, TPLF has a slight advantage. Why? TPLF commanders were leaders of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces for a long time. They are the guys who took charge after the collapse of the Darg regime in 1991. These veteran commanders have insider information on passive and active deployment of ENDF formations and units, as well as its resources in terms of equipment and combat capability. These TPLF commanders also know the weaknesses of ENDF, and we can tell from what is going on in the field of combat that the TPLF generals have applied this knowledge to their advantage. Now, compare this. The current commanders and top leaders in the Ethiopian National Defense Forces were actually subordinate officers to the top TPLF commanders. So in essence, you have a situation where the ENDF field commanders are engaged in combat against their former superiors and perhaps even instructors. This obviously gives TPLF officers an advantage because they are fighting against people they know very well and whose tactics they know. The other issue is on the issue of justification for the war. TPLF enjoys absolute advantage in this parameter. Why? Tigrayans feel that they are fighting for something legitimate and land that is rightfully theirs, while the rest of Ethiopia is basically fighting to keep a castrant child in line. The passion of Tigrayans to fight for what they consider as an existential threat cannot be compared with the motivation of other Ethiopians fighting to keep an unwilling teenager at home. The moral justification in any war is a strong pillar for motivation, endurance, and bravery. It is perhaps the single most important reason this insurgent group, known as TPLF-TDF, has been able to hold out against a far much superior and well-equipped ENDF. Finally, information is a very important currency in war. Now, ladies and gentlemen, TPLF has used information warfare and propaganda very well. Its media campaign is very well packaged and backed by a well-funded team of opinion shapers and lobbyists. The Ethiopian federal government and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces seem to be clueless in this age of online social media campaigns. TPLF has used its digital media superiority to portray the federal government forces as perpetrators of genocide from the very early stages of the war. International opinion is still heavily steeped against the federal government and the federal government forces because TPLF was able to marshal a very strong team of digital warriors who took the war to the Western capitals and made sure that TPLF's propaganda and agenda was very sustained and deliberate to support their covert operations. I do not understand why the federal government of Ethiopia and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces have not found the engagement in digital media space necessary, but this has simply played against them. It is the reason that some Western countries have threatened sanctions, others forced the Ethiopian federal government to declare a unilateral ceasefire in June this year and withdraw ENDF from Tigray. This is one area where the Ethiopian National Defense Forces and the federal government must up their game, because if they do not up their game, they should know that in the world of today, information is the most important currency in war and combat operations. Thank you.